Good evening, and we're going to do a Subaru live session Q&A. Here we are. If you're new here, then welcome. If you're not new here, then welcome back. I can see we've got quite a few people on board already, which is great. Sam, hi Kev, hi Ben, congratulations by the way, newborn baby. Good evening Zed, Mel, Mike, Colin, Neil. Welcome. So questions and answers. I've got nothing to say apart from answering your questions. So if we run out of questions, then I'll shut the session down. Hopefully that won't happen in the first 5 minutes. There's normally, an awful lot of questions. Generally, I'll keep this to no more than an hour. So just to keep you warned on that. If you've got a question, if it helps me sort of identify a question. If you put a big Q at the beginning of your question, just type it in the live chat, and hopefully, I will get round to answering it. And if I can't answer it, then I'll tell you I can't answer it, rather than ignoring it. If you don't know me, I'm Duncan. I tune Subarus for a living in the UK. Been doing that for nearly 20 years now. So I was just looking at the comments. Party people, hi Fred. You ask a question, I'll do my best to answer it. UK experience is predominantly up until 2018. So, like the newer FA24 engines haven't made it over here yet. Well, I'm hoping that that will happen soon. We'll be able to start seeing the first imports of those from Japan, but we haven't got them yet. Let's pick up the first question. So, what's the alternative for open port? I can't find one. I'm hoping that they get this back up and running, or get the open port 3 released very quickly, because it is really inconvenient for everyone. Everyone trying to tune their own cars. Even the likes of me, if anything happens to my open port cable, then I'm kind of in the creek without a paddle. Or I would be if my backup one died as well. So there is an alternative. On the last Q&A session, I picked up an example in Amazon. I haven't got the link for it now, but if you watch the first 10 minutes of the last Q&A session, I put the link of the product that should work. I can't guarantee that it will, but it's essentially a copy of the open port Tactrix cable, but it has the necessary chip to kind of stabilize the voltage, which should do the job. But as I say, I haven't tested it myself. So please take as many precautions as you can to test it and make sure you're not a million miles from home before flashing your ECU. So hopefully that helps. Hi Sol, hi. I've been trying to download the map for my buddy's 2018 STI, but having troubles with my definitions. I still don't have the correct definition for it after downloading more from others. Do you have the ROM ID? Because if you have, then I should be able to create a definition, or at least patch together definitions for it. Buzz me an email or a message on Discord, and I'll see if I can find the XML for it. I did that for a JDM STI, but I think that was 2017. So should be able to do it. Z, can Cyvex S6 run an aftermarket dash like Haltech or Cyvex Tiny Dash? Yeah, it can do anything. It'll send out the data on a CAN stream or an RS-232, so you can run Haltech, Stack, Motec, you name it, as long as you can, you know what sort of stream it needs. There's probably already a configuration set up for it, but if there isn't, then it will run whatever. So it will output the data on a CAN stream. Yeah, the Toucan, the JT Innovations Toucan will take the same CAN bus data or RS-232 and display it. So the most dashes will take either RS-232 or CAN bus. Most of them take CAN bus, like the Link dash, the AIM, AEM, the Motec, the Stack, Haltech. I've run all of those on a Cyvex S6 and S7. Right. Sam, hi Sam. Do you know if Graham's fleet of GT Motorsport still does the WRC O-ring CNC headwork, or anywhere in the UK? Graham is actually retired as far as I'm aware. He's still doing the odd bit of engine building for select customers, select clients, but as far as I'm aware, to the general public, he is no longer building engines or doing that kind of work. He did the original O-ring setup for the RCM and sort of engines for Gobstopper 1, I think, and 2 as well. But yeah, he's no longer operating, unfortunately. Unfortunately, we all get old. I'm not saying he's old, but he's as far as I'm aware, he's retired. Right, how are we doing? Questions wise. Right, Paul. Hi, Paul. Thinking of putting the cap back on, so MOT should be easier. Pound will decrease, obviously, but would a front mount help it get back close? The Hawk WRX 450 horsepower. Yes, it would. The two, like what you lose with a sports cat or a cat in there is probably what you would gain from having a front mount. So the two will balance each other out. Obviously, it would need mapping. The increased back pressure from the cat would mean that the air fuel ratio is going to be a lot different. The ignition time and requirements are going to be a lot different. Because if you've got more back pressure there, then you're less able to get all the dead, old, combusted air out of the engine, and obviously get less new, fresh air in there. So it needs less ignition time, or it would take less ignition time. But yeah, it's a good way of balancing the two things. So how's everyone doing? You know, it's been an interesting year, to say the least. From my own perspective, it's been a bit chaotic, and I apologise for a lack of videos going out up until now. That is catching up. I've got film footage to bring together into videos, and that's happening over the next few days and weeks, and we'll be back on track with the series on how to map your car, the ultimate guide to mapping. Right, Fred. Hi, Fred. On the link, do you typically run 2 or more fuel maps relative to season's temperatures, i.e. a map for hot summers and a map for cold winters? No. What I generally do with the fuel compensations is put in an intake temperature compensation for fueling. Also the same for boost control and also ignition timing, because with the colder air you can run more ignition timing. But doing distinct separate maps for summer versus winter probably wouldn't be worth it unless you're running like pure E85, whereas in some markets there's a summer mixture and a winter mixture that are completely different. So you might want to do it for that reason, but you could probably do it better with compensations, because then that's going to sort of make up, like if you get one warm day, or a few warm days out of sync or out of character, then it will just automatically flip over to those, rather than sort of waiting for you to sort of load in a separate map or switch it. Yeah, it's a lot easier to do it with compensations. It might not just be the intake temperature that is a compensation. I'm trying to think of what other temperature compensations you could have in there, but if you're able to sort of data log the changes as to what's going on, then it would be easier to do it as a compensation table rather than a distinct fuel map. And with regards to the IAT compensations, you can make that either a 2D table, so just a straight line of values, or you could have make it a 3D, so have manifold pressure on another axis. Whatever you find is useful, so that you keep the fuel table distinct and sort of works in all weather, but you've got compensations that take up the slack. Right, how are we doing? Just orange juice tonight. No Orangina, I'm afraid. Run out. Right, Hugo, welcome back again. Hello. Thinking of buying an FP Blue turbo for my EJ207 version 7. My VF30 is damaged, but I don't know if it would be too laggy on a 2 litre. I'm presuming you've got AVCS on there. Excuse me, I've got dust in my eyes and it's irritating. I presume you've got AVCS in there. I don't think it'd be too laggy, but too laggy is kind of relative, very subjective. So to some people, having lag at 3,500 or having boost coming in at 3,500 is laggy. To others, 5,000 is acceptable. So it's quite subjective, but it will not be too laggy, in my opinion. I don't mind a little bit of lag, because it just tells me I need to change gear, just to wake it up a bit. But the FP Blue is a decent turbo. The FP Black is a really good turbo for the higher power. Right, you're getting pressured by 2 lads at your work to do a track day with them. Don't do it, Zed. Don't do it. Right, so do you mean with the Fuji baffled sump kit, is that just the baffle plate? If it's just the baffle plate, then it's not really going to do anything about holding the oil around the pickup. I refer back to I can't remember which video it was that I talked about the baffle plate, but I know it upset some people. But the baffle plate is just like a lid on a bucket. It doesn't really do anything. If anything, in my opinion, it slows down the oil getting back to the sump, which is where you want it. If it's a proper baffled sump with like segmented areas in there to keep a column of oil around the pickup pipe, then yes, that will suffice. But all of this, it just depends on how quickly you drive on track. You might, on your first track day, think you're going really quickly. I can assure you probably aren't. You might accelerate hard, but you won't be cornering as quick as maybe the car could allow. I'd probably say try it. If you got oil pressure gauge, which I know you have, then just keep an eye on that and make sure that the oil pressure isn't dropping mid-corner, and you'll be fine. Ideal place for the oil pressure gauge is on the windscreen pillar, because, well, certainly on the UK cars where they're right-hand drive, most tracks are clockwise, so you can see it in your eye line, sort of mid-corner. What else would you need to keep things relatively safe? Like fuel surge is an issue, but if you keep above half a tank of fuel, then you're not going to have an issue there. But I would like to keep safe. I would just say, do a warm-up lap and do at least one warm-down lap. But don't stay out there too long, and check your fluids all day long. So whenever you come back in off a track session, don't put the handbrake on. Take a bit of wood to rest the car against so that it doesn't roll away, and let the brakes cool down. And check your fluids, check the coolant, check the oil, make sure the brake pads are fine, make sure that there's no leaks, and apart from that, you'll have a great day. I remember my first track day many years ago. I think I did 3 tanks of fuel that day. Right, Neil, I've got MOT in the GC8 at the end of the month. Was originally mapped with no cats. I've now got a 100 cell cat. Car has wideband and lambda control is on till 4,500. Will I need adjustments? No, for a stable state for MOT, the lambda, the link CAN lambda is going to be able to control that for slow idle and fast idle. So as long as it's not outside of the range that it's allowed to compensate for, which I doubt it, it's not really going to have an effect as far as the fueling until it's on boost. Then I would say it will be fine for MOT purposes. You're saying it was bad last week. Thanks, Shane. I appreciate it. Yeah, my worry is the 5-speed. Not enough transmission for when the power comes on. I was having this chat with someone today, running 500 horsepower on their 5-speed gearbox. At some point it will break. It hasn't broken yet. He's been driving it for 3 years at close to 500 horsepower. It should have broken, but it hasn't. He's aware that it will break at some point, but if you're quite mechanically sympathetic, then you can make them last a bit better than just like quick shifter and ramming it into gears and oops, where's third gear gone? Or you might be really unlucky. I've seen them break at 230 horsepower. I've seen them break or not break at 500. So I don't know which ones in particular should last. What are my thoughts on running a EMAP back pressure sensor full time to monitor pressure ratios relative to map? I haven't done it, I have to be honest, Fred. The Group A rally cars run a turbo vacuum sensor at the front end, just to stop the cavitation at the front of the turbo because they're running super high boost. At the back end, I'm not sure that you're going to get into a position where you're going to need it. Are you going to have to run like super quiet silencers or cats in there, Fred? I'm not sure, but I've never seen the need for it. Not saying it hasn't got a purpose, but every sensor that you add can help, but can also lead to another level of paranoia. So unless you've got the sort of direct data as to what it should be like for your car, your engine, your exhaust system, you're comparing it against someone that's running that on a completely different kind of car. So it might be a huge distraction. Right, Neil, exhaust is 3¼ downpipe, 3-inch system, which I hear is bad for getting stable emissions readings. Not my experience. 3 inches has been fine for a good stable car. As long as you've got nice proper injectors in there, then there should be a nice clean burn, really. If you're running at lambda, then if there's cats in there and they're warm enough, then the CO and the nitrous readings will be low as well, or the hydrocarbons. Try it. Just keep checking it all day long, and not only checking the car, hydrating yourself as well, because it does take a lot out of you hydration wise. It's very hot. Crash helmet in a locked car. Keep an eye on fluids of the car and yourself, because it's the dehydration that makes you lose concentration. And don't do the last session. Whatever you do, it's the last lap that you have incidents on. Just one more lap. Oops. Right. Got a question. W20C block in the GLB JDM hatch has thick bores. Right, I presume you're meaning a 2 litre hatch. I probably wouldn't go more than a half a thou oversized, or half a mil oversized, because you'll find it really difficult getting pistons to fit. If you're having to go more than that, then sleeving those blocks, the cost of doing that versus the fact that the sleeves almost always drop a little bit, you might as well just get a brand new block. Right, Dangerous Fox. You have a 2009 JDM Forester XT same as mine, which you think is a TFO 3.5 turbo. It is. Will this get you up to 300 horsepower with an exhaust? Am I better off upgrading to a VF52? I've tried with mine. Admittedly, I did cut back exhaust, but that only got it to about 263. I think we got to. The intercooler is small, so with a bigger intercooler, it would get closer to 300, but it won't do 300 in my opinion. You might as well skip the Heart 8 and just put the 52 on there. It's a lovely turbo, and that will bolt on, and with a slightly bigger intercooler, it will get over 300. Neil, you should be absolutely fine, unless you've got an absolute bell end of a MOT tester who's just got it in for Subarus. Then you should be fine with the fueling. Hey man. You have. Member for 21 months. Looking forward to the dyno day. Yes, absolutely. What is that? 4 weeks? 5 weeks? 4 weeks this Sunday, I think. Carl wants his WRX sending to the moon with his new TDO 520G. Nice. Yeah, bring it on. Bring it down. We'll have a good day. Right, let's see if there's any there that I've missed. Alright, any experience with the cost of 272 in that 274 exhaust S2 grind cams? None directly, no. 278 is quite a long duration cam. 272s is what I ran in mine, and that allowed 850 horsepower. 278s are going to be lumpy, not as lumpy as 290 cams, but I don't think that extra 6 is going to help. As far as the flow through the engine and the heads, there's probably a better way to do it, but I've no experience of those cams. They might be fabulous. Cosworth versus AMS manifold. Cosworth manifold, mapped lots of those, but again on mine I ran 850 with a standard STI manifold. There was no reason for me to change that. Standard drive-by-wire manifold, standard drive-by-wire throttle, and with the right bits bolted onto it, it made the power. I don't think it would have made any more power with the Cosworth manifold. It looks lovely. Pain in the arse for mapping because there's nowhere to bolt your deck cans to. Same with the Process West manifold, looks fabulous, but I have yet to see a direct before and after, same car, same mods apart from the manifold, to actually decide whether it's completely worthwhile doing it. I think it's a big chunk of money and there's better things to spend the money on. Right, Fred, so mostly to measure turbo size, currently with an FB Blue, looking to upgrade. If you need an alibi sensor, then fit one, but you've obviously decided you want to fit a bigger turbo, fit a bigger turbo. You only live once. Alright. I got the Amazon OpenPort 2. Have you walked through with people on these fake ones? How to use them? Not finding much luck online. I've got one of these, the fake ones. Well, I will have one of these fake ones arriving in the next week or so. So I will report back as to how I find it. Bottom. Yeah, it's the last lap. It's well in the UK, Cadwell Park. Never do the first few laps because it's always greasy through the trees. So just sit in the clubhouse, grab a coffee, and watch other people crash. And the last lap of the day, because you're tired, you're dehydrated, the car's tired, the car's knows that it's done a day out. So if you're going to have issues, it's the last session or the last lap. Same at the Nürburgring. Oh, just one more lap. That's the issues. That's when you're going to have the issues because concentration is gone. I always, when I go to the Nürburgring, I always come back with a lap ticket, an unused lap ticket. It's a waste, but it's worked for me so far. Yeah, we're doing a dyno day for the Academy members that are based in the UK or want to travel to the UK for that. It's on the 21st of September's, 21st of September or September's, and the club members will come down. We'll have a giggle. Some of the guys want to put the cars on the dyno, then we'll do that. They'll map them. I'll assist if they want help. Have something to eat, chat, and yeah, hopefully it'll be a good day. I don't know how much the 1 mil oversized pistons would actually take the engine size up to. Seems like an awful lot of work to do to bore it out, to put bigger pistons that if you then have any kind of damage in the balls, then you kind of have to throw the block away. I wouldn't ever be boring out a block to fit bigger pistons unless I had to, unless there was some big gouges down there or damage or whatever, or if the bores went oval. But every bit that you do that side of things, you're degrading the strength of the block. Yeah, I wouldn't do it. Personally, I wouldn't do it. Just stick with what's in there, what's working, rather than spending money unnecessarily for a 1 mil bigger piston that you're not going to notice the extra CCs from, and it's going to cost you a fortune to get there. Personally, I wouldn't do it. What's my opinion? Tuning NA 2.5 Subaru, is it worth your time? If I had one myself, I would tune it. If a customer had one and they asked me to tune it, then I would advise them against it because it's not worth the money. The gains that can be gained are very small, Predominantly it's throttle response, but the power advantage is very small versus the cost of paying someone to do it. Too much. I talk people out of it all the time. In fact, almost every time. How are we doing time-wise? Right, okay, we're cool. Right, my exhaust headers and uppipe heat shields are tatty, rattling. I'm thinking of changing to Fuji unequal single scroll tubular headers and uppipe. Any experience with them or issues? Cars are UK version 9 STI. Personally, I kind of come across as tight when I do these things, but I wouldn't. I'd just take the heat shields off. If they're rattling, just take them off or get some repaired. But if you're wanting an excuse to buy some shiny stuff, then the Fuji unequal length headers are absolutely fine. I've had no issues with those, but they're pretty much the same as any other GT spec headers. So they are prone to cracking within the collector unit. But if it was me, I would take the standard headers, port them out a bit, take the heat shields off. You can wrap those, make them look pretty, or fit proper heat shields, or a nice Funk Motorsport header blanket on there if you wanted to. But I'm sure you'll do what you want to do. I buy the nice shiny things, but the shiny things don't stay shiny and they're hidden under the engine, so you hardly see them anyway. Power wise, depending on what sort of power you're at the moment, you might get a slight advantage in power versus the standard headers, but debatable. Oh, Tom. Hi, Tom. Do you have any preference or advice as to what brand type of underseal to use on a chap import compressor that's now in the UK? If it's completely dry and it's just arrived in the UK, then I would probably go with a Lanagard type treatment, because then you can at least see what's going on. And it's protecting it, and you can just refresh that every year. And it's a cheap way to do it. It's not covering everything up with black shit. The spray on under seal that covers everything and seals everything in, unless the car is completely dry and rust free underneath it, you might be creating more problems than you think you're solving. But the Lanagard, I think is a good product. Hello mate, hi Dan. Tried putting a TDO 520G on yesterday, and the holes of the coolant pipes were bigger than the M12 plunger bolts from the VF39. Is this normal? Yeah, depending on who's made the turbo, the bolts might be slightly different. So they should have had a coolant pipe banjo bolts supplied with them, or you could go to a local thread and pipe kind of place that would match the thread in the turbo to what you actually need. Or best oil, Hamza, hi. What's the best oil for a Subaru WRX STI models? I use Shell Helix Ultra 1060. Any recommendations? Personally, I use Liqui Moly Racetech 1060 and I think it works fabulous. I've used Motul 1550 300V oil, again superb. I used that in a race car. Never had any issues with that apart from the fact it's bloody expensive now. The Liqui Moly is much better value, and I'm doing an oil change on my Forester SH every month, so it helps that it's a lot cheaper, but it's coming out after 6,000 miles. It's coming out in very good condition. A bit of a mad on this, mate, but hear me out. What would you experience or benefit, if at all, with a bespoke design Platinum? Subaru are really good. Subaru are really experienced. They built these cars, and the basic design for the engine 30 years ago, 33 years ago, 34, I think. It has developed, it has changed a bit, obviously with drive-by-wire throttles and all those sort of bits, but the basic inlet manifold design is been pretty much the same for the last 14, 15 years, and it works. Having a bigger plenum there, you think might be a great thing, but I can assure you Subaru have tested an awful lot of these things, and unless you're making one and can sort of back it against different cars, different inlet manifolds, then I think it's a lot of money that's going to be spent on something that's probably not going to work as well. Oh, you're talking about the holes. Right, okay. Just cut the bit of metal between the two halves of the pipe, and that will you can put the holes where you want them then. That's easy. Alright, hoping to get you to ETU my 207 since you're in America. Alright, what things should I prepare with when we get this open port situation figured out, or recommendations? Ideally, get a wideband installed, and a way of bringing that information into your data login or into the open port, because that will make it an awful lot easier to go through data logs and see what's going on precisely with the fueling. Make some deck cans, because they'll be useful, but apart from that is the open port cable and getting that to work properly. I'm very good, Nick, very good indeed. Hope you're well. Hello, Henry from Canada. I get people joining in for this all around the world. It is mind blowing. .530 no good for a WRX. No, I wouldn't put 530 in any Subaru engine apart from the FAs. I think they recommend that, but the basic EJ engine is quite an old design. I think it needs a slightly thicker oil, and 530 comes out like water after 6,000 miles. So personally, I would always run a thicker oil than that. MZW, I have a weird lean spike while driving. What could be the possible issue? What could the possible issue be? O2 sensor? It depends when the spike is happening. If you're at steady state and getting a lean condition, then it could be O2 sensor, it could be MAF sensor, it could be an air leak somewhere. If it's when you're putting your foot down, it could be an air leak, it could be a lot of different things. It could be fuel system, it could be O2 sensor, but guessing on sensors without the data, it becomes really expensive. I met a customer sort of back end of last year that I think had spent about £1,200 so far on recommendations from people from Facebook as to what was wrong with his car. So O2 sensor, MAF sensor, this, that and the other, lots of different bits, and he had spent an absolute fortune before he came to me, and it was just a case that it hadn't been mapped for the modifications that he put on the car, and that was it. Is it possible to tune a 99 JDM Forester? Yeah, it just depends on what parts bin they picked bits out of to build the Forester out of, really. Foresters are always parts bin cars, so it just depends on what they had left on the shelf as to what they used. The 99, you would probably be, well, for me it would be EC or ECU Tech, depending on how you want to say it. But you could also do that with Project Lambda. That would also allow access to a 99 ECU. Obviously it's commercial software, you have to buy the dongle, the Bluetooth dongle, and a license fee per ECU, but it gets in and it's usable. Okay, Shell 1060 is not good or not? Yeah, I think Shell Helix is what Subaru recommend. From personal experience with Shell oils, they tend to disappear a little bit in a Subaru engine. I don't know why, but if the oil levels aren't going down and the oil pressure's good, and the oil's coming out in good condition, then stick with it. It's not a bad oil at all. Shell know what they're doing. When reading the oil pressure gauge, when the engine is running, it is 90 and drops to 45. How to read the correct oil pressures. Right, okay, well this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier on. Each new gauge or sensor that you put on there leads to a different level of paranoia. Unless you know what you're looking for. And the thing to look for with oil pressure is changes. So if it's if the car's hot and it's idling, it's 45 psi, great. If that suddenly drops to 20 psi, then you've got an issue. If it's always idles at 30 psi, fine, great. It doesn't matter necessarily the 30 or the 35. You put thicker oil in there, you'll get higher pressure. You put 530 in there, you'll get lower pressure. When the engine's up to speed, i.e. when you're driving along, yeah, you probably see sort of 70-80 psi of oil pressure when it's hot. So yeah, it's knowing kind of like, so when you're cold, when the oil's cold, the pressure will be higher because it's harder work pushing the oil through the system. So if it starts off cold at 90, and then as the engine warms up, it goes down to 45, then that's normal. Right, last 10 minutes, guys. Mad 555. Version 3 STI Type RA, lovely car. Extremely hot to the touch when just idling. Is that normal? I don't think that is normal. Normally you can touch the idle control valve to adjust it, undoing the 2 screws to adjust it. That seems like something's like working a bit overboard. Oh, everyone always wants to buy shiny stuff. I love shiny stuff as well. But believe you me, I really love shiny stuff. But I've through the 19, 20, 25 years of owning Subarus, the shiny stuff doesn't stay shiny, but it makes you happy for a little while. But ultimately, if it's not earning its place on the car, then in my opinion, spend the money elsewhere on stuff that is more useful, like upgrading the brakes or the suspension, because the shiny headers, £700, £500, £600, £700 is quite a lot of money. Oh, do O2 sensors go out of scale after a few years? I don't think so. They go a bit skew-if just before they fail completely, but they're normally pretty good. And certainly the narrowband sensors for Subarus are pretty good, unless you're running lots of pops and bangs or anti-lag, or if your fueling is way out. Yeah, tracking. The Tactrix. I talked about it at the beginning of the last Q&A session. I think it was in the first 5, maybe 10 minutes. So if you read back on that, there was one that I picked out that should work, but I haven't tried it. I will try it very soon. Yeah, 1050, however you want to say that. Yeah, fine. I think the thinner oils disappear. They burn away or vanish. Right, what oil do you recommend for diff? I can't remember off the top of my head. It's so long since I changed the diff oil on mine. It's due for change, I think, probably the month after next. So I'll let you know when I do it. Manuel. Voila. How long do Subaru R180 rear wheel bearings last? Time or miles? I can't think I've ever replaced the rear wheel bearing. I might have replaced one on the race car, but that was after an impact with the barrier. Oops. They are Subaru changed them for a reason. They're a much stronger wheel bearing. The 100 PCD wheel bearings are quite weak in comparison, and the wide track ones are much better, much stronger. Certainly the bolt-in bolting bearings are a lot easier to do as well. All right, Alright, both cars, O2 and wideband shows the spike while normal cruising, running speed density map. Could it be the map sensor? If the data log is showing the map sensor reading as static, then I would say not. If the map sensor is jumping up and that corresponds to the lean spike, then yeah. Generally, if the map sensor reading has the little spike, or it will probably be a spike down, then that would be just before the wideband reading, so they won't perfectly coincide. But if you're seeing that on the logs and then the spike follows, then yeah, it could be, but I would be more inclined to think that there's an earth issue or a signal issue that's going on there. If you're not seeing the spike in the sensor or dip in the sensor, then it could be something else going on. Data log what's going on, and you'll find something happening just before the lean spike if it's on a steady state. Right, we are coming to the end, guys, so right, recommendations on a turbo on a EJ207. Don't have a power level I want to reach, just want to have fun driving it. For my own opinion, I love the twin scroll VF36s, VF37s. I don't think for normal fun driving, spirited driving, or whatever you want to call it, I don't think there's anything that can really respond as quickly as a JDM twin scroll setup, because it's instant response and it's a lot of fun. Right. Yeah, again, you know, Carberry is a you've heard the term speed density. It was a hack that was developed by Guy Carbibbles, I think his username was on ROM Raider forums, and reworked the standard ROM to actually make it run mathless, because they wanted to run it mathless and to have some of the extra toys like anti-lag and launch control, although it's a very toned down version of both of those, but it gives some extra toys. But the size of the file limits the possibilities for what it can do. So the ROM file can only do so much. So when you start assigning some of that size, some of the 192 kilobyte file size to running the fun stuff, then other stuff suffers. And that's, you know, kind of one of the compromises of the speed density side of things for the standard ECU. But yeah, Cyvex would be a very good option for you. But you know that already, Sid. Right, okay. At the end of this session, thank you very much for paying attention. If you lasted the duration, then well done. Give yourself a big round of applause. And I will see you again next week. Again, if you've got any other questions, put them in the comments below the video once it's live or once it's been converted to replay, and I will answer them down there.